Hello, this is TCAT from TCAT's Deep Vinyl Tracks. I'm doing a contest or video entry for Dave the Pickup Artist's channel. This is for a Psychedelic Push to 200 contest and all-you-can-eat buffet. Dave the Pickup Artist was pushing to 200 subscribers. I notice now he has 237, so it looks like we already hit that and well on our way to 300 subscribers. So congratulations to Dave for that. The rules of the contest, I'll post a link to his contest announcement video down below in the comments area, so you can go there quickly if you need to. Go ahead, go there, subscribe. That's one of the things you have to be a member to enter the contest, so subscribe to his channel. He's got some great content there, and then you need to show 5 interesting or strange or nice psychedelic albums from your collection. So I've got 5 vinyl albums that I'm going to show, but I also wanted to throw in 4 other CDs. I don't have vinyl copies for these. I would love to have vinyl copies for them, but I wanted to throw these in too, and I'll show those first. The first one is from a band a lot of people consider progressive, a heavy progressive sound. But this particular album is definitely one of their earlier ones, and it's a psychedelic sound, and that is Porcupine Tree's Voyage 34. The early Porcupine Tree albums were pretty much all done by Steven Wilson himself, where he played almost all of the instruments. And they were also more centered around the psychedelic sound. They didn't change to that heavier sound until a few years later when the full band was formed. But this album is actually an EP. It was released in 1982, November of 1992, and was originally released with only 2 phases, so that's why it was considered an EP, because it lasted around 30 minutes. Originally, these first 2 phases was supposed to be part of the band's, or the project's, second album, Up the Down Stair, but they decided they didn't want to do a double album for their second album, so they kept it down to 1 and took the phase 1 and phase 2 of Voyage 34 and released it on a separate EP. Then, after Up the Downstair was released, 1 year later in 1993, Steven Wilson did 2 remixes of the first 2 phases and called them Phase 3 and Phase 4. These 2 phases are a little bit more of a trance type sound, not centered more around the melodic sound of the first 2 phases. This particular release here was released in 2004, and it has all 4 phases together on 1 disc. Again, the first 2 phases, in my opinion, are the best 2. But the other 2 are nice if you want to just completely bliss out and listen to kind of a trance-like sound. This is the booklet it comes with. There's several more pages than that in it, but Porcupine Tree, Voyage 34. Another band is Mercury Rev. Mercury Rev has been compared a lot to the band The Flaming Lips, and that comparison is very well merited. Both David Baker and Jonathan Donahue have ties. Jonathan Donahue actually played on 2 of the Flaming Lips albums. Also, their bassist, Dave Friedman, co-produced almost all of the Flaming Lips albums. So this is the Mercury Rev. This is the band's second album. It's called Boces, B-O-C-E-S. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. But this album was their second album, released in 1993. The band is from Buffalo, New York. This particular album is in their early stages when they were more of a noisy neo-psychedelic sound. They kept their psychedelic sound through the years. However, David Baker would eventually leave the band and Jonathan Donahue would become the spokesperson. And as that happened, the band transformed into a slightly different sound. They kept the overall neo-psych sound, but became a little bit more progressive and a little bit more accessible in a way. This one is very noisy, but once you strip past all the noise, you get used to the songs on the album. You start to find out just how complex and how great the songs are. So one that takes a little getting used to, but is very well worth it. Fish. This is Fish's debut album, Junta, released in May of 1989. Fish is a jam-style psychedelic, especially on this album. Very interesting lyrics. They have quite a sense of humor, and a lot of people say if you want to know what Fish sounds like in their concerts, then this is probably the best studio album to hear it on. This was self-released by the band before they made it really big, and interesting lyrics. I'm going to read you some of the lyrics here, which are quite hilarious. Millie turned and began to scream at Floyd. She said, "You think you're pretty mean." And though she was as thin as a small string bean, she slammed him in the face with a nectarine. Floyd fell back over the edge of the ship till he hung on by the rail by his fingertips. Millie said, "Floyd, I'll make you lose your grip. With this tiny piece of paper, I can make you slip." So Millie took that paper and did the deed. Floyd hit the water with astonishing speed, and as the sharks circled in and began to feed, Millie knew her weasel was finally free. "Oh, Fee, you're trying to live a life that's completely free. Floyd is dead, he's nothing but a ripple, because Millie took that paper and sliced him on the nipple." So, there you go. That's an example of some of the crazy lyrics on this fun album. It's a double album, by the way. It was released in 2012, finally on vinyl for the first time for a record store release, and I would love to be able to find it. I tried to get it the minute it came out, but no luck. Another band a lot like Fish, in the neo-psych vein and more of a jam style, is the String Cheese Incident, and this is their album Untying the Knot. I just want to show them real quick. They're an excellent band. Kind of has the Tool look to the cover, but they have more of a Fish style sound and delve more into the trance. They have a lot of trance elements in their music. There's the cover that opens up into somewhat like a poster with the lyrics printed on the other side. Okay. Now I want to get into the vinyl. First of all, I've got Deep Purple's Book of Talisman. This album was released in 1968, I believe. And this particular issue is on the Talisman label, the silver label. I love this label. There's a story behind why I love it so much. I remember when I was probably around 12 years old, if you bought so many bags of chips and saved the bags that they came in and sent them in, they would send you a box full of 10 singles. I mean, for free, just for the bags of chips that you send in. So I did that, and the song River Deep, Mountain High, which was an edited version of it, was one of the singles, backed up by Listen, Learn, Read On. I remember listening to those songs and thinking, I've never heard anything like this before. This is really strange. but that was my first introduction to psychedelic music, Deep Purple. Next, this is an album I found fairly recently, Velvet Underground's 1969, taken from a concert recorded in 1969. This has got Lou Reed as doing the lead vocals. And the first half of this album is a little harder for me to get into. Here's the track listing. The reason why is it didn't seem like anybody was really getting into what they were doing. I like their original tracks better than these live tracks, but by the end of the second album, second side, and the third and fourth side is just excellent. That's where the best part of the concert is. So 1969 by Velvet Underground and Lou Reed. Frank Zappa's earlier albums could be considered psychedelic. This is his first solo album, his third album altogether. This was the first time he released an album without the Mothers of Invention being credited as part of the band. He calls it part 2 of We're Only In It For The Money, and it kind of follows the same idea. There are actually a couple of different versions of this album released. The first version was released by Columbia, and it broke the contract that Zappa had with MGM and their discrete label. So Columbia ended up having to pull the first version of this album, and then Frank Zappa went through, re-edited everything, redid everything, added things to it, took things away from the original, and came up with this. And the two albums, even though they're both called Lumpy Gravy, if you can find the other one, the other version of this, you've got something that's worth a lot of money. You can now get both versions on a compilation that Zappa did that goes through all of the recording sessions. It's kind of like a 4 or 5 album set. It goes through all the recording sessions during that time. Last of all, well, not last of all, I've got a couple more, but I'm going to hurry a little faster now. Steve Miller Band's number 5. Now you're thinking, what is Steve Miller Band doing under the psychedelic umbrella? If you haven't heard anything prior to The Joker, you wouldn't really know why Steve Miller Band would be under the psychedelic, why it would be considered psychedelic. Of course, most people know him from his popular music. This album, number 5, came way before Fly Like an Eagle, and this is what Steve Miller Band sounded like before. This is an excellent album, one of my favorite by the band, and it's got quite a variety on it, but there's always a psychedelic edge running through the entire album. But nothing gets more psychedelic than side 2's Jackson Kent Blues. This is a 7-minute psychedelic crazy psychedelic song that, if you think you know Steve Miller Band, I guarantee you that track will just blow you away as far as being psychedelic. Talk about weird. That song is weird, but it's great. I love it. And I love this album. Steve Miller Band, number 5. Last but not least, we got Hawkwind, Hall of the Mountain Grill. Hall of the Mountain Grill, sorry. Hall of the Mountain Grill was actually the name of a restaurant. And on the inner sleeve it says, "And in the grove by gate and hill, midst merry throng and market clatter, stood the hall of the mountain grill, where tables strained neath a loaded platter." Excellent album by Hawkwind. One of their best, I think. One of my favorite by them. Okay. There's my 5 psychedelic albums plus 4 CDs. I hope you enjoyed that. Maybe got a little information from that you can use in your search for music, for great psychedelic music. Some of that may be questionable about what people would consider psychedelic, but they are all psychedelic albums, and things that I highly recommend as far as that goes. So, go to Dave the Pickup Artist's channel, subscribe to his channel, and show us 5 of your psychedelic albums. Alright, thank you very much for watching, and we'll talk to you all later.